The purpose of this lesson is to learn the basics of SQL syntax, how to show a list of databases and tables, how to get information about table structures, how to create and drop databases, how to select information from a database table, how to insert information into a database table, how to update information, and also how to delete information. When you first launch the MySQL workbench, you have to choose which connection that you want. Now on yours, you probably only have the local connection. Click on it and it will connect. This is the basic layout for the MySQL workbench, and this is our query editor. This is the place where we can actually manipulate the database tables. On the left side here we have the navigator, and the navigator has things for managing our SQL server. It has ways to manage our instances. We can check on things like performance, but what I'm more interested in is down here where it says schemas. This is all of our databases and all of our tables. I want to hide this information up here, so I'm going to click the double arrow, and now I only see things about my databases. Alright, so I can see that I have 4 databases here, technically called schemas, and if I look at these tables, I can click the little arrow beside it and get information about it. So I can look at this classic models database and see that we have tables that are customers, employees, and so forth, and I can get some information about them by clicking the arrow. So I can start drilling down and seeing information about the particular database and tables. Now this is just strictly a function of the MySQL workbench. It's actually issuing some SQL queries in the background to get this information for me. I can do this exact same thing through a query, and I can get the information from here. I can get it from a program. Anything that is able to throw SQL queries to the database will actually be able to get the same information. So to get that information, I'm going to click over here. This is my query editor. This is where I can type all of my commands and I can execute them. And every command is called a statement. And what a statement is all of the text that I have to type all the way up through a semicolon. And a statement could be one line, it could be multiple lines, but it ends in a semicolon. And I can have multiple statements here. It's just each statement has to end in a semicolon. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. I want to show a list of all of the databases. So I'm going to type the command show and then databases. And then I end this statement with a semicolon. So this is the entire command, therefore we end it with a semicolon. I want to execute it, which is going to be this lightning bolt. When I click it, it will actually run. And what I will see is down here at the bottom, it will show to me whether it was successful or not. So if I get any errors, if it was successful, and then I will get a section here that actually shows the output. Whenever I issue a query that gets information from a database or from a schema or the tables or anything like that, it always provides back to me the results in a format of a table. So if I execute this, you will see down here that it ran. There's a little check mark here that shows that it was successful. It says that 7 rows were returned, and this is the information that was returned to me. Notice it's in the form of another table. So I have all of these databases installed. Some of these are actual MySQL databases that are required for the back-end maintenance of the database and for actually driving everything. So you won't see those over here. But I will see my classic models, Northwind, Sequila, and World all exist over here. So I want to use this classic models table database. So what I have to do is I have to tell the system that I want to send commands, and all of the commands that I send, I want them to go to the classic models database. So I'm actually going to use a command called use and then tell it the name of the database. So I want to use classic models semicolon and then execute. So now what you'll notice is classic models over here is now bold. That means that this is the database that is currently active. It's the one that we're using. So if I issue any commands, it will go against that database. Alright, so I want to see some information about the database. I want to see what tables are in there. So I'm going to show tables and then execute it. So now I can see that our database has tables in it. And our tables are listed over here also. And like I said, this information is just the workbench doing it. Behind the scenes, it's actually issuing this command to get these results, and then it displays it to me in this manner. All right, so I can see customers, employees, and so forth. All right, so what I want to do is I want to see some information about this customers table. In our basic SQL select statement, one to get information out of the database, starts with the word select. And I need to tell the system what I want to actually receive out of the database. So I'm going to tell it that I want to see a list of columns. So I could tell it that I want to see customer number, customer name, customer last name, and so forth. So I'm going to tell the system I want to see the customer name, customer number, because I can actually do these out of order, contact last name, and contact first name. And where am I selecting these from? I want to select them from a particular table. So I'm going to type the word from on the next line. Now, like I said, this could all be on one line, but we typically will type it out on separate lines to make it easier for us as humans to be able to see it. So I'm telling it that I want to select those particular columns from a particular table. So the table is called customers. And then I'm done, so I end with a semicolon. This is our most basic SQL statement. So execute it. Now I get that information. If you notice, I ask for the customer's name, their number, their last name, and first name. So I get the customer name, which happens to be the name of a company, their customer number, their last name, and their first name. Now, if I want to see all of these columns, then I would have to type every one of these out. But there's actually a shortcut that I can use. And what I can do is I can tell it, select asterisk from customers. And when I run this, it will show the entire table to me in the order where it's actually stored in the database structure. So now I can see all of the columns that are actually listed. All right, so I want to see some information about a particular customer. So we have this customer number 121, and I only want to see information about that particular customer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more line to this statement, and it's what's called a where clause. So I'm going to say that where the customer number is equal to whatever their customer number is. So if I want 121, I type that here, and then I can execute it. Now what I will get is only one record back because this customer number happens to be our primary key, and the primary key has to be unique. So therefore, I only have one customer that has customer number 121. All right, so if I don't want to see all of this other information, if I just want maybe their the customer's name and their phone number, then I can tell it I just want those two columns, still from the customer's table, still where the customer number is equal to 121, and when I execute, I get this. And what it does for me is it makes it where I can narrow it down. I can get just the information that I want out of the database table. Now with the workbench, I actually have the ability to have multiple tabs up here, so I can have multiple queries open. And what I want to do is click this button right here. We'll create a new SQL tab. And now I can actually type new things in. So what I want to do is I want to show you how to make a database. So I'm going to create a database called test. And the way that you do it is create database. This is a keyword called database, and then whatever you want the database to be called. So when I execute this, I will get a result back that says that it was created. Now notice it does not show over here right now. I have to refresh this to see changes. So when I refresh, now you will see test is here. If I want to get rid of this database, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the database. Now be aware, when you drop a database, there is no recycle bin for it, so therefore it is flat out gone. It will not exist anymore. You cannot get it back. Now as I type these commands, I keep clicking the lightning bolt up here, but there's actually a shortcut way to do this. I'm going to type a command, and I'm going to type select everything from customers, semicolon, and instead of clicking the lightning bolt, on my keyboard, I'm going to hold the control key and press enter. And that does the exact same thing as clicking the lightning bolt. So I can either click the lightning bolt to execute it, or I can do control enter to execute that command. All right, so far what I've shown you is how to create a database, how to drop the database, so I want to get rid of it, how to get information out of a database table, and then to see what the structure of the database is. But I haven't shown you how to add new records for a new customer. So let's say we have a new customer that comes in. I need to add information to the database table. When you add information, that's called an insert. So I want to insert some information into this table. All right, so the way that this works is I want to insert into a particular table called customers. And what do I want to insert? Well, I want to insert what are called values. And the way that this works is my database table is structured so I have customer number, then I have customer name, then I have contact last name, and so forth. And I'd have to know what the layout is for my database to be able to put these records in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter a record for a company called Hometown Baker. And Hometown Baker is going to be customer number 2001. So I have to put these values in here in the exact order that they are in the table. So I'm going to say 2001, and the name of the company is Hometown Baker. But the thing is this is actually a text value. And if I enter a text value, I have to put single quotation marks around it. And notice when I do that, it turns green. It knows that it's text. All right, so the next field is the contact's last name, which in this case is going to be Smith. And his first name is Bob. And those are text, so I'm putting those in single quotes. Now, the thing is his phone number is actually a text value. And I'll show you here in a minute to figure out what kind of value those should be. But I know that it's a text value, so once again I have to put it in quotes even though it's numbers. So it's 555-222-1212. That's his phone number. Okay, the next thing is his address, line 1. So this would be the first line of your address. So in this case it's going to be 123 Main Street. Once again a text value. And this next one, address 2, this would be something like if I have an apartment or a suite number. And in this case, he doesn't. And if you notice, some of these here actually have a special value called null. And for this person to not have a value, I have to actually type the word null to tell it, hey, I'm not actually entering anything here. So then I have the next field is a city. And so he's in Orlando. And the next field is the state, so that's Florida. And the next code is postal code. And once again, your postal code is usually going to be a number, but in some instances you will see it as a text value if you require a 5-4 value. So in this case, it's a number, so 32801. And then the next value is what is his country. So his country, text value, so in quotes, USA, comma. Okay, the next value is sales rep employee number. Now there is a constraint in this one, which means that his rep number actually has to exist. So his rep number is 1370. And what it will do when I go to create this record is it will actually perform a lookup to make sure that sales rep 1370 actually exists. If it doesn't, it'll throw an error to me telling me that it can't exist. All right, and they're going to have a credit limit of $22,000. All right, so that's a lot of information that I'm typing into this line, and notice I have to scroll back and forth to see everything. I will show you an easier way to do it here in just a minute. So the structure is insert into the particular table. What values do I want, and then in what order are they going to be listed? And I have to account for every single column if I do it this way, even things that are null. All right, so I'm going to execute it. I should get back that it was successful. And now I'm going to take advantage of my second tab, and I want to select everything from customers where that particular customer ID exists. So I'm going to say where customer number is equal to 2001. Now you'll notice I typed these in lowercase this time. In the actual SQL standard, they should be capital letters for any of your keywords. In MySQL, it is not case sensitive, which means it doesn't care if you put it in caps or lowercase, and actually the lowercase is preferred. So I'm going to start typing in lowercase, execute it, and here's our record. Now, because I did select everything, you'll notice I got another row here for the asterisk, which gives me another record where everything is null. That's normal. Don't panic. You'll get that line. But it's just because I selected everything. If I only selected certain columns, I wouldn't see that other row. All right, so I can look at this and I can see that his customer number is 2001. Here's all the information that I put into it. And, oh man, I put the wrong phone number in here. I don't want to do that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open another tab. And I put his phone number in there and it's wrong. So I need to change his phone number. I need to update his phone number. Okay, so I'm going to update the customers table. And I'm going to set the phone number for this particular person to 555-555-1212. And then who do I want to do this to? Now, if I were to press execute right now, it would do every single customer that's in there, would change their phone number. So be real careful when you do this. All right, so I'm going to update customer, set their phone number to this, where customer number is equal to 2001, semicolon. So we're going to update the customers table. I'm going to set the phone attribute to this particular value, where their customer number is equal to 2001. So it goes through first, does a query, finds the customer number that's 2001. Then for the particular column, it will change their phone number. So run this. It was successful. Come back and I'm going to reissue this statement. Now notice originally it was 555-222-1212, and if I execute this, his number is now updated. So the power of the database is that as soon as I make a change, it immediately becomes effective for everybody that has access to the database. Now I told you that the insert statement was kind of hard to follow here, and I want to show you how to make this a little bit easier. SQL does not pay attention to what is called white space, which means that I can put every one of these values on its own line. Okay, now what that does for me is I can see going straight down what the values are, and then we could leave it like this, put our semicolon at the end, and now it makes it where I can kind of see a little bit better what I'm actually inserting into the database table. All right, but I don't necessarily want this in this format either. I want to make it a little bit easier so I can figure out what each of these are. So what I can actually do is one thing further, I can list right after the table declaration what attributes I want to affect. So in this case, I can list in here that I'm going to be doing the customer number, and then comma. And then the next one is the customer name, comma. And then the next one in, Smith, is our contact, let's see, last name, comma. Then we have contact first name, comma, and so forth. And if I do it this way, then I can look at this and I can say, okay, this is their first, or this is their number, this is their name, there's the name, and so forth. All right, well, what if I don't want to input values for everything for this person? So what I can do is I can specify just particular values that I want to insert. So let's make another customer, and this time it's going to be Betty's Pancakes. Okay, now the problem is that this single quotation mark is actually a command. It tells us it's the end of the text statement. So what I can do is I can actually use what's called a delimiter. So what a delimiter does is it actually tells the system that whatever follows is not actually supposed to be used as a command. So ignore the following character. So I'm going to put a backslash here, and if you watch right now, Betty is green, the S in pancakes are black. And if I put a backslash in here, you'll notice now that Betty's pancakes is all green because this delimiter here of a backslash tells it ignore this apostrophe coming afterwards. So I want Betty's pancakes to be here. We have this backslash. Now it knows that this apostrophe is not a field delimiter. It knows that it's actually going to be something that it should ignore, and it will just treat it as text. Okay, so I'm not going to enter all of these values for Betty. Okay, so her name is Doe, and her first name is going to be Betty. Okay, so I have the customer number is 2002, the customer name is Betty's Pancakes, her last name is Doe, and her first name is Betty. Now, I'm going to issue this, but it will actually fail because it's expecting me to enter some other information. So I'm going to run it, and then we get an error message down here. As I walk through this example, I will purposely show you some errors that we get along the way and show you how to fix them. So the first thing you'll notice is that our error says you have an error in your SQL syntax. And it tells you that it's on line 7. Now if I look at line 7, I will see this little red X here, and you'll notice this has a red underline. It's kind of hard to see, but there is a red underline. And the reason for it is I included a comma after contact first name. If I remove that, now that goes away. I don't show any other error messages here. So I'm going to try to run it again, and I'm going to get another error. Okay, so now the error that I received this time is that field phone doesn't have a default value. Now you'll notice that I actually did not enter anything about a phone number in here. And because I didn't enter anything about a phone number and I'm creating a brand new record, the system will automatically enter null values for any of the columns that I did not specifically state what to do with. The problem is there is a way that you can create a database table and tell it that null values are not allowed. And what that would mean is that I don't want people to be able to enter a record for a customer unless they include their name, their address, their telephone number, their email address, or whatever other information is required. So I can tell the system that they're not allowed to use nulls. Whoever created this table obviously said it we're not allowed to use nulls. So I'm going to open another SQL tab. And I want to see some information about that customer's table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to describe customers. And when I run this, I will get a table back that shows information about our customer's table. And what you'll notice is that our customer number value is an integer value. This means it's going to be a number that's up to 11 characters long. It is not allowed to be null, and it is our primary key. It does have a default value entered, but because it's not allowed to be null, this can't work. Customer name, same thing. This one is not allowed to be null, but this one's what's called a varchar. A varchar is a variable length character string, so in other words, a text string, that is allowed to be anywhere up to 50 characters in length. There is a char value, or char data type, and there's a varchar data type. Be careful with the two of those. A char data type, if I set it to 50, it would have to be exactly 50 characters long, no more, no less. Varchar, though, is allowed to be anywhere from 1 character up to 50 characters in length. Okay, so I have to enter their customer name. I have to enter their last name. I have to enter the first name. I have to enter a phone number. I have to enter address line 1, but I don't have to enter address line 2. I do have to enter city. I don't have to enter the state. I don't have to enter the postal code. I do have to enter the country. And come down a little bit further, I don't have to enter a sales rep, and I don't have to give them a credit limit. So what this means is that this table is constructed in such a way that I'm allowed to have customers that don't have a second line on their address, that they may not live in a country where they have states or postal codes, so I don't have to list those. And they may not necessarily have a sales rep, and we may not allow them to have a credit limit. So those things are going to be null, but everything else is not allowed to be null. Now the ones that say yes for the null value, what will happen is if I don't specify what goes in there, it will automatically enter by default a null value. So let's go back and we will fix those. Alright, so we had their customer number, their first name, last name, the company name. We have to enter their address line 1. We have to enter their city. We have to enter their phone. And we have to enter their country. So those are required. Now the thing is I can put these in any order up here. So if I wanted to, I could put the country first up here, and then remove country from here, and it will still work. The only catch is down here under values, I have to put everything in the exact same order here as it is up here. So essentially the first item should be the country down here. So if I were to say USA, all right, and then the second item is customer number, so that's going to be her customer number. Her customer name is Betty's Pancakes. Her last name is Doe. Her first name is Betty. Her address line 1 is 222 2nd Street. Her city is also going to be Orlando. And then her phone is going to be 555-234-1212. So now what I've done is I just simply made sure that if this is country here, this is country. Second item, customer number, and so forth. And they just all have to be in the right order for this to actually go through as I expect it to. Once I know that my information is all listed there and that I have all of the columns that are required, I can execute this query. I execute it. It says the insert was successful. One row was affected. Now I can go and look at my table. So I'm going to look at the customers table. Oops, sorry. Select everything from the customers table where customer number is equal to 2002 because this was Betty. Execute it. And now I get my record back for Betty. So Betty is now customer number 2002. Remember, customer number is a primary key value. So if I were to try to enter somebody else as 2002, I would actually get an error message stating that I can't do it because it's already in use. It has to be a unique value. In this case, when I entered her information, remember I didn't enter anything for address line 2, so it automatically created as null. Same thing with state, postal code, and their sales rep and credit limit. Because those things allow nulls, and a null is the default value, those will automatically get entered when I create this record. When we created Betty, we left the state and the postal code out. I want to enter those. Now, I can't just go back and enter both of those together. I would have to do those as separate statements. So I'm going to go and open a new tab. And in this case, I want to update the customers table. I'm going to set the state for Betty to be FL, because she's in Florida. And then where customer number is equal to 2002, semicolon. So it's going to modify the customers table. We're going to update it. We're going to look at the state column and change it to FL for the customer with this ID number. Okay, so now I also want to do her postal code. And her postal code, we're going to set that equal to 32801. Once again, it's for customer number 2002, so I only have to change this one value right here. And now if I go back and I look at her record, now I will see that she lives in Orlando, Florida, 32801. So not only did I create a record, I was then also able to modify it to change her state and postal code. Later on, let's say she gets a credit limit, we can update just that value. We don't have to update the whole thing. We just do one at a time. All right, so we have Betty added, and Betty has decided that she no longer wants to be one of our customers. The last thing that I want to do is I want to delete her record. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete her record. So I'm going to issue a delete command. What am I deleting? Now this actually works the same way as a select statement. So I can select or delete from the customers table where customer number is equal to 2002. Now, a word of caution, before you actually delete anything, what I would recommend doing is actually performing a select statement. So select everything. And the reason for it is I want to make sure that this bottom part really pulls up the record that I believe that I'm going to delete. So if I select this, then I know that I have Betty's Pancakes, I have the right record, Now I can delete it. So if I do delete here, it will delete just this one record. I know that my conditionals are set correctly. So if I execute this, she's been deleted. And now if I come over here and try to select her, nothing shows up for her because her record has now been deleted. So I can insert a record for her, I can update her record, and I can delete her record. Be aware that once you delete it, there is no recycle bin. It is completely gone. In this lesson, you learn the basics of SQL syntax, how to show a list of databases and tables, how to get information about the table structures, how to create and drop databases, and how to select, insert, update, and delete information from a database table.